It's an unlikely hero for the Dallas Stars in Colin Blackwell, who scores the overtime winner in Game 2 to even the series heading to Colorado.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. The Dallas Stars bounce back in game number 2, a depth extravaganza, and it's Colin Blackwell who scores the overtime winner for the Dallas Stars to take game 2 by a final score of 4-3. An electric game 2 at the American Airlines Center. Colin Blackwell had his fingerprints all over this one. We'll discuss him. We'll talk about Jake Oettinger and the timely saves he made, the special teams X factor as well. Dallas needs to clean some things up, especially in the discipline department. Also, Miro Heiskanen is on the trip to Denver. That is a very positive sign if they could get him back for either game 3 or 4 in Colorado. But let's dive right into game number 2. So much to dive into, but we have to start with the Dallas Stars fourth line. Blackwell, Beck, and Steele were incredible in this hockey game. And Blackwell was a perfect spark plug. Head coach Pete DeBoer spoke post-game about his energy that he can bring and how he wanted to work him into the series rather quickly. Of course, they lose game 1, so they're able to work him in for Maverick Bourque, and Blackwell was spectacular from puck drop. The fourth line had the best 3 or 4 shifts in the first period for Dallas, where the Stars were taking on water a bit. They were a bit overwhelmed. Colorado was heavy, physical. They were fast, and they came after Dallas early, and the Stars had to weather some of that storm. And we'll get to Otter as well. He had a phenomenal night. It wasn't his best night overall, but he made timely saves, and we'll touch on some of those because he was a big factor in game 2 as well. But back to Blackwell in this fourth line, just positive shifts, spending time in the offensive zone. And the Stars have done a really good job, especially against Cale Makar and Devon Toews. They forced them to defend quite a bit, especially that fourth line. They're so good along the walls, and they play direct. And we'll get to this too, because I wanted to show the heat map, and we'll get to this right away because I think this is a good summarization of Dallas from game 1 to game 2 and the improvements. Look at the heat map here for those of you watching on YouTube. The Stars dominated the net front. In game 1, it was Colorado. Not a lot of heat waves there in front of Jake Oettinger, but in front of Blackwood, the Stars did an excellent job of playing more direct, and Pete DeBoer touched on that in the post-game press conference as well. He thought they played more direct and they looked more dangerous, especially at 5-on-5. And they really grew in the game. And they didn't have overly huge nights from some of their big boys. Duchesne was rather quiet. Even Mikko Rantanen, Hintz, not the big boys were all over the place for Dallas in this one. I thought this was a perfect example of Dallas sort of showing their strengths with their depth. And we thought this is where the Stars could have the advantage. And credit to Colorado, too. They got a couple of fourth-line goals from Drury and O'Connor in the second period. But I thought the Stars were able to sort of puff out their chest a bit with some of their bottom 6, and they were excellent, especially in that third period, too. Jamie Benn came alive. He was phenomenal. Some vintage stuff from him, physical, hard on the forecheck. It creates the Dodonov goal late too. Dodonov's just been amazing. What a goal from him to stuff it home. He had great positioning. I mean, that goal's a perfect example of this heat map. He's right in front, creating a screen, and he jumps on the rebound, and he's able to stuff it home. I also thought it was really interesting that Pete DeBoer touched on how the popular players or the best players on both teams, of course, your Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar, how they get touched on so much. And DeBoer said during the pre-scout and when you're going into each game, you're focusing on these specific players so much, and how it's so funny that it's usually the fourth line guys or it's some of your bottom six guys that end up deciding games and deciding series, because you take so much time and you take so much energy trying to stop 29, trying to stop Heiskanen, right? Some others that you almost forget about some of the depth pieces for both sides. And these teams are loaded that they end up becoming some of the deciding players in the series. I thought that's just a real intriguing insight to how teams really go about their business, focusing on certain players. And it's players like Colin Blackwell and others that make huge plays. And Blackwell's overtime winner is just such hard work. I encourage you to go back to watch the rebound off of Blackwood on the initial shot from Blackwell, and the puck's kind of in that bottom right circle area. And Blackwell's like he's still on the boards. There's 3 white sweaters. It looks like Blackwell's on the outside of all of them. The puck's sort of in the middle. And guess who gets to that puck first? It's Blackwell, as the puck's just sitting there wrapped like a present, and Blackwell jumps on it and is able to bat it past Blackwood. What an incredible, incredible moment at the American Airlines Center. And the player that was a healthy scratch in game 1 comes back and has a huge, huge impact on the contest. And Dallas just got better as the game wore on. The overtime period was a bit even, in my opinion. I thought the Stars had a great first 5 minutes. Then Colorado started to push back a bit. And then in the last 5 minutes or so, or last couple minutes leading up to the Blackwell goal, Dallas started to find their legs again. But just a really, really fun hockey game. And it looked like maybe Dallas was going to have to weather the storm early, hold on. They shot themselves in the foot a bit momentum wise, and we're going to get to some of the penalties and just special teams in general, where Dallas just needs to clean up some things. But you look at players like Dodonov. He was the highest rated player in the contest, 3.89 game score via Hockey Stat Cards. Jamie Benn is up there too. This wasn't an overly huge night for some of the so-called stars on Dallas, and they are right there with Colorado. These first 2 games, as a Stars fan, you have to feel really good about where Dallas is. If they can match the compete level of Colorado, they're going to be in a good spot. And if Dallas is going to get some of this offense from their bottom 6, they're going to be in good hands in the rest of the series. Lindell and Ceci had a pretty decent night. I know they were on the ice for a couple of goals, but I thought they were pretty decent. Labushkin's been awesome. Him and Harley are putting together some really nice games. Thought they had some excellent shifts, and this sort of leads me into some of the really key plays. There's about half a dozen that could have sent this game off kiltered, and Dallas came up with some really big plays. Otter, number 1. I didn't think he was awesome in the game. The power play goal by McKinnon, he should have stopped. That was just a wrister from the top of the circle that I think Otter should have had. But he made key saves early in that game too on Nichushkin right off the bat. Had one on Heiskanen in the first period. Then the follow-up in the third period when it was 3-2 at the time still for Colorado. Heiskanen got tripped up. He was on his knees, got back to his feet, tried to elevate. Sassy glove save from Otter in that third period on Heiskanen to keep the game 3-2. Moments later, Dallas ties the game at 3. That's a key save. That's a timely stop from Otter. And he just had a couple of those, especially early on when Dallas was on their heels a bit. Colorado tried to extend their lead after opening the scoring on the power play, and Otter and Dallas would not allow it. Then in the third period, in a 3-2 game for Colorado as well, this was before the Heiskanen chance. McKinnon jumped on that loose puck. He tried to slide it across to Heiskanen. If that gets through, it's probably lights out. It's 4-2. But Labushkin steps in the way, gets a deflection on the pass with his boots to break it up. So those are some of the key plays in the game that maybe get overshadowed when you look at the contest as a whole. But those are some key saves at timely spots for Dallas. And I thought Otter, he wasn't lights out in the game, but he made some of those big saves at timely points in the contest. And you need some of those. And I thought Lyubushkin had a great defensive play too late to not allow Colorado to extend their lead. And then boom, Dallas was able to strike. And after the Dadonov goal, you could just feel it in the building that the Stars were eventually going to win the game to some degree. You felt it. It was palpable. They were humming, and it was energy. It was emotion. It was a fantastic sight and a great bounce back. And they just needed a win after losing 7 straight going in to the playoffs and then losing game 1. It's a big bounce back win going to Colorado. It's going to be a tough couple of games in Denver, but I loved what we saw out of Blackwell. I mean, look at Blackwell, 5 shots on goal. Johnson had 5 as well, but Blackwell and company were fantastic, fantastic. And they ended up switching up the lines. It was good to see Rantanen back with Roope Hintz. Because of Robo, they were trying to shuffle some things up. They're trying to get Rantanen going, but it really impacted Dadonov, Ben, and Johnston once they got put together. Look at some of these numbers. 8 shots on goal, 2 against. 7 scoring chances for, 0 against. So really solid stuff. And the Rantanen trio, 7 scoring chances for, 2 against. So flip-flopping Rantanen and Dadonov seemed to really help both of those lines. Not just one, but both of those lines. And they were really good down the stretch for Dallas. And again, I say this, like Duchesne wasn't playing his best in game 2. Roope for that matter. Even Rantanen, I don't think some of the big boys for Dallas were overly phenomenal in this game, and they still won. You had to do it in overtime, but you're going to have some of those games, and that was great to see from Dallas. It was physical, it was fast, and I just felt like Dallas was getting better and better as the game wore along. DeBoer mentioned they felt more dangerous. You can look at the 5-on-5 numbers, expected goals for 3.8 for Dallas, 1.67 for Colorado. Killed a fly there. So they were really good. They were really good in this one. And you look at the possession numbers, and this has really been a calling card for Dallas. We haven't seen it in a while. We haven't seen this. 60% Corsi for percentage in periods 2 and 3 for Dallas. We haven't seen that in a while. So that's a great sign. Great sign heading to Denver. And again, Dallas is still without Miro and Robo. I know Robo may be out for the series, but possibly Miro's coming back sooner rather than later. That's the hope. But let's dive into the special teams X factor, because with how close the series is, the slim margins, Dallas needs to be locked on, whatever you want to call it, locked in on special teams. We'll get into that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grains of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for your unsaturated fats to help you keep the feeling of being fuller longer. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. A satisfying crack of opening each shell. It's like snack meditation. You're busy nowadays. You're running between meetings, maybe dropping off your kids. Wonderful Pistachios is a snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking, get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. So the Dallas Stars haven't been dominated in the first 2 games in the special teams department by Colorado. I think you could even make an argument they've maybe won the battle to some degree after a 5-on-3 early in game 1 that they were able to survive. But Colorado has scored 2 power play goals. The great news is Dallas has countered with 2 power play goals themselves. And Tyler Seguin's power play goal was just phenomenal. I didn't get to touch on it in the first segment, but what an entry by Mikael Granlund. That was such a nifty little entry on the power play to drag it to his backhand, get it to Ben, and then Ben to Marchment, boom, to Seguin. And Granlund doesn't pick up an assist on the goal, but he certainly deserves one for his entry into the attacking zone on that power play for Dallas. And that was just a vintage Seguin one-timer from the left circle. But why I wanted to have this discussion or talk about this is because it feels like sometimes special teams is taking away the momentum for Dallas. And this gets to Marchment, who had a bit of a rough game. And Dallas was already struggling in the first period of game 2. They were trying to survive and they were defending hard. And by Marchment taking a penalty, it just exacerbates everything. And it sort of snowballs into that power play goal for Colorado. And look, when you're defending as much as they were in the first period, and this is a point I've talked about a lot in the last month of the regular season, because they were defending so much, they were taking a lot of penalties, and they're even taking some penalties 200 feet away from their own net already in this series, and that has to stop. But that Marchment penalty in that first period is just a killer, because they already weren't playing well, and you take that penalty, then he puts your team down a man, and then boom, McKinnon capitalizes, and you're down 1-0. The power plays even. Look at the 2 power plays at the end of the second period. The third power play was all right. Wasn't fantastic. The fourth was just awful. No momentum created by it. And then they give up a goal like 15 seconds later by O'Connor, who came out of the box. So you can't kill momentum. Your power play doesn't have to score all the time. But if it's going to affect you negatively, and it's going to maybe even cost you a goal, that's where you're going to have a lot of issues, especially against Colorado. And this isn't an earth-shattering point, but special teams may end up just deciding the series in general. It's going to be massive. I'm curious to see how Dallas fares in Colorado. If I recall last year, Dallas didn't take a lot of penalties in Denver in that series. Maybe 3 total in the 2 games. I could be completely wrong on that, but Dallas is really disciplined, and they're taking too many penalties in the first 2 games. 14 penalty minutes worth? It's just asking. It's asking a lot out of your penalty kill units, and it's just tough minutes too, right? It's those heavy minutes that you're putting on guys like Lindell, who are already playing a ton, Cody Ceci as well, that you have to try to stay away from. And look, they're going to take a penalty here or there, but it's some of the penalties away from your own net. Granlund's tripping penalty. Oh man, when Rantanen took that penalty, which I thought was a bit soft. I couldn't believe they called that at that point of the hockey game, and I was dreading thinking about Colorado scoring against the Stars late in regulation with Rantanen in the box. Would not have heard the end of that. But Dallas buckled up, and that was an awesome kill. Otter with a couple of nice saves here or there. But for the most part, the penalty kill hasn't been a huge issue. I think Dallas has done a good job of keeping Colorado to the perimeter. They're giving up shots that you want to give up. The McKinnon goal, that's a shot you're going to live with most of the time. In game 1, I thought Makar had a lot of chances, missed the net, but giving up shots from outside the tops of the circles. And that's where Dallas is doing a good job on their PK, not allowing Colorado to get interior. But the more you can help yourself and not killing your momentum, I thought we saw that in the second period too, where Dallas came out, had a good step, and then Granlund takes a tripping penalty, and then it forces Dallas to go back on the penalty kill, and then they have to sort of ramp up momentum again that they could have carried just right into, the second period. So there's some discipline. There's some discipline that the Stars need to be a bit better with. But you have to give them credit for their kill. I thought they've been great. And look, it's hard to stop a unit of Natchez, McKinnon, and Makar. Only giving up 2 power play goals on what I think Colorado has, is it 7 power plays in the series so far. Like that's great stuff. That's great stuff. And their power play has scored a couple too. And you're going to need that. You're going to need some of those goals, but it can't kill their momentum like we saw in that second period. That is just it's just not going to work. But yeah, special teams is always a big factor. Some of the calls are just mind-boggling. It's kind of baffling sometimes when you look at different calls here and there. It's not always the most consistent. And the officiating wasn't bad last night. The Rantanen one is going to get a lot of people up in arms just because it's late in a game. And I agree. I didn't think it was that awful. And it's not like it was taking away scoring chance, but I digress. Stars doing a decent job, but they need to win the battle moving forward, especially in Denver. If they want to try to earn a split, maybe take both games against the Avs, which would be something. So we did have some updates today on Miro, Heiskanen, and Jason Robertson, who may or may have not made the trip to Denver. We'll get into those in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes it so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props. You got 3-pointers, steals, assists. FanDuel has so many ways to get you in on the action. Bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You can download the FanDuel app on your smartphone. It's free. It's available. It's simple. It's easy to use. And you can make some money and get bonus bets, $250 worth of bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Once again, I know some of you are probably sick and tired of hearing this, but for those of you who are new, I apologize that I'm not able to get an episode out right away after each and every game. I have a full-time job where the schedules have just clashed here in the early going. The great news is the Ice Rays won last night and swept to advance to the next round. So they'll have about a week and a half off until their next series, which will allow me to get some episodes out in a more timely manner. Also, you have to give me some time because I have to go back and watch the game in its entirety. Since you are all watching it, I have to do my homework. That way I'm putting out the best product. So sometimes I have to sleep. I get off to a slow start. I got to watch the game and then I do an episode. So I do apologize once again, but for the next week or so, I'll be able to be a bit more punctual. So bear with me. But either way, enough of that. Miro Heiskanen, by the way, is on this trip to Denver. He's heading to game 3 and 4. Whether he plays or not is another question. But it also got me thinking because Gabriel Landeskog for Colorado, he was in warmups in game 2. Of course, he did not get in the lineup. But if you're thinking about these two players specifically with Landeskog and Miro Heiskanen, and by the way, Jason Robertson did not make the trip. Again, I think he's probably out for this series. We won't see him until the next round. He was labeled as week to week. I think it'll be a hard ask to have him back in the series at any point. But you look at Heiskanen and Landeskog. If you look at the impacts both of those players could have on their respective clubs, let's just think about maybe the mental boost, because we discussed this with Chris of Locked On Avalanche. I think Landeskog may be a bigger mental boost for Colorado than Miro Heiskanen is going to be for Dallas. Just the emotion, especially if he comes back for game 3 and plays, the building's going to be insane. I mean, it's going to be berserk. So the mental boost, I would give an edge to Landeskog. But if we're talking about on-ice impact, Miro Heiskanen is going to heavily outweigh Landeskog. And that's not because Landeskog's not a great player, but you have to factor in it's been 3 years since he's played at a really, really intense level, let alone the playoffs. And I don't know how effective Landeskog is going to be. And maybe that's unfair of me to say, but when you think about how important Miro is to the Dallas Stars, I think Miro's impact on the ice is going to heavily outweigh what Gabriel Landeskog will do for Colorado. If you look at some of the acquisitions so far for the Avs, I don't think we've seen a ton out of Charlie Coyle or even Brock Nelson in the first 2 games of this series. Haven't seen them a ton. So Landeskog may give them some juice. It's another weapon, of course, but the way Miro can control the game, I think it's going to be massive for the Stars to get Heiskanen back. And if you look, I would say if we had to predict the outcomes or the impact those 2 players would have on their respective clubs, I think we would give the edge to Dallas and Miro. Now, the mental boost, the emotional boost, I could see it being in favor of Colorado, just because he is their captain, right? He's a leader. And he hasn't been there forever. And if he shows up in game 3, again, the Ball Arena is going to explode. But if Dallas gets Miro back at the same time, Landeskog, I'm okay. And I've said it before. I think with Miro, Dallas is gonna maybe win the series. I think they have a great shot at winning with him back in the line, even if he's not 100%, because we're gonna have to give him some time to sort of find his groove again. It is a lower body knee injury that he's coming back from. So I'm curious to see both of them at some point, and I hope we get Miro back as soon as possible. It's a great sign. I think it's a great sign that he's traveling, and from the reports and morning skates and everything, looks like he's doing fine, and of course he's skating with the team, and that's great news. And my goodness, having Miro back is just going to change the course of the series. It really is. Miro coming back makes me think that the series changes. Landeskog doesn't do that a lot for me. And I don't know how other people see it. I'm sure Avs fans believe it will change, but I don't see Landeskog changing the series as much as Miro would be. I guess I'd be curious to hear how other people would view it. But I think it's hard to argue that Miro is going to have a much bigger impact on Dallas than Landeskog is for Colorado. And that's no disrespect to him. He's a great player. And as I'm saying this, he'll probably go out and have a hat trick at some point. Hopefully not. But like I said in the crossover, I want Landeskog to be healthy, play well. He's a good player, but not against Dallas, not in this series. So it'll be rather intriguing to see how it all shakes out. But good news either way. And I did want to kind of touch on that part of it and see maybe your feelings on it too. Let me know in the comments. What do you think the bigger impact is going to be? Landeskog for Colorado if he comes back, or Miro for Dallas? Apologize, I was all over the place, talked a lot over the weekend. So just had a lot of thoughts coming out of game 2. It was exciting rewatch. That was for sure. Blackwell, baby, overtime hero. And Stars are back in the win column. That is huge. Jason Robertson, though, not on the trip. So we will not see him in games 3 or 4, unfortunately. But that'll do it for today's edition of Locked On Stars. Thank you guys so much for the love and support. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, never miss an episode. We'll see you tomorrow for another episode. When is game 3? I apologize. I'm so off my rocker at points. Because I think there's a couple of days in between. Okay, there's not. A couple of days in between games 3 and 4. So yeah, we'll be back for a little game 3 preview, and I'll be able to get an episode out right away for those of you that are hoping. So be on the lookout for that. See you tomorrow, Stars fans. So long.